Hi, it's Becca from the Regis Pathway, and I am going to present to you my project, my professional identity project, which was a series of yoga poses that I put together to represent different aspects of my evolving professional identity. So as you know, with the paper, I did provide a written list of some of the concepts and the names of the poses, but I thought that as I go through the sequence, it might be helpful for me to talk through some of those things as well. So I'll give some little bits of information as I go through the poses just to help kind of provide more guidance. All right, let's get started. Okay, so the first pose that I selected is easy pose, and the Sanskrit traditional name is Sukhasana. And I chose this pose because it's really about finding your sense of presence and a sense of non-judgment and awareness. And I think that as therapists, it's really important that we're able to do that when working with a person, before working with a person. I think it's also helpful if certain clients are able to, for therapists to work with the clients on developing that sense as well. So I did combine this pose with the Gyan Mudra. It might be hard to see, there you go. And this represents wisdom and knowledge, so just bringing in that piece. Okay, so pose number 2 is called cat-cow pose. This is a super foundational pose, and it really is a physical warm-up, but it's also a warm-up for the mind and the spirit to just get prepped for the rest of the practice. And I chose this because I was thinking about the importance of coming back to the basics and having your foundation in place with a client, whether that's particular to their treatment plan or that's just coming into the basics of occupational therapy and remembering the importance of those. So cat-cow involves these movements of the spine. And I'll just do a couple, since this is just to sort of give you the gist. And then pose number 3 is a low lunge called Anjaneyasana. So we're really aligning the mind, body, and spirit here, and I felt that that really represents the unification of mind, body, and spirit that we work on in occupational therapy, and that holistic piece. And then I brought in the Anjali Mudra, which is also called prayer mudra, to add in that element of connecting with the divine and those Ignatian values. Okay, and then pose 4 is Tadasana, and I'm actually going to come and bring myself here so you can see. It's mountain pose, and it's a centering, stable stance. So again, thinking about those levels of centering yourself as a therapist, and then also working with your clients on those skills, whether they're practical skills, whether they're mental health skills, whether they're interactive skills, but those things that help bringing them into balance and centering and a feeling of stability. I also like Tadasana, or mountain, because of the additional idea of perspective, and I kind of think about standing on top of a mountain and when you see the big picture of things and how important that can be in clinical practice. Okay, so pose number 5 is Virabhadrasana, or Warrior 2. And I have not used to practicing with a camera here. So in this pose, this is all about strength and stamina and confidence. And I thought about those being important skills that we might cultivate again with our clients. And I also thought about how this pose makes you think about being strong for our clients and being a warrior, or really an advocate for our clients. And then we go into one of my favorite poses, which I had to put in just because it's one of my favorites. And it does bring in that element of meaning and cora personalis. And this is Trikonasana, or triangle pose. And then one of my most favorite things to do is to go from Trikonasana into Ardha Chandrasana, which is the half moon. And this is a really dynamic pose where you have to be strong. And actually I'm going to step back because I'm going to be out of the camera. There we go. So from triangle to step into Ardha Chandrasana, you have to be so many things in this pose. You have to be strong and stable but open. And I think that makes me think about when you're a therapist and you're working with someone and you're wearing so many hats and trying to balance all those things. And of course, it's just really fun. So thinking about occupation and meaning, I wanted to incorporate this. Okay. So we'll come out of that. And then pose number 8 is Vrksasana. This is tree pose. And this is a balancing pose. So again, going along with that idea of balance and even occupational balance and how important that is for clients and for us as therapists too. And then the other thing I like about tree pose for this particular sequence is that it reminds me of that sometimes we have to go out on a limb for our clients and do that greater good and that greater work. And of course that brings in the Ignatian values as well. Okay. From Vrksasana, or tree, we're going to go into Uttanasana. And this is a pose that's all about rest. And as I come out of this pose, it's hard to talk in that pose, I just think about how important it is to have rest. And of course we know that's part of the occupational therapy areas of occupation, but also just for me as a student right now, I really realized how important it is for me to find ways to rest so that I can stay vital for myself and for the work that I'm doing. Okay, and I'm going to turn sideways again because the next one is Adho Mukha Svasana, and that is downward dog pose, one of the probably more familiar poses of yoga. And I chose this one because it's really about grounding, but at the same time turning inward. So you have that connection with the outside, and at the same time that turning inward of the heart. And then we'll come down for our last two poses. We have ones that we've already seen. We have the cat-cow, just bringing it back down again to that foundation after coming to those sort of higher levels of experience maybe. And then finally, transitioning down and finding that easy pose to settle. And that's it. That's my yoga sequence. I hope you found it interesting, and I really tried to reflect a lot of the learning that I had. And I want to say that the most interesting thing was that I did the paper and I looked at the class content and all the experiences that we had, and yoga, as I explained in my writing, really came to the forefront. And then as I worked through the poses, I started to see all these other parallels, and everything really unfolded in this really cool way. So I hope that came across, and I thank you for a wonderful semester, and I look forward to continuing to work with all the students and the staff and developing as a professional.